I'm about to say one of the most controversial statements in the history of YouTube. It will definitely flood my comment section with hate, and I might even lose some subscribers because of this. And I'm going to say it in 3, 2, 1. I don't get the Taylor Swift hysteria. Let me explain myself. I actually really love Taylor Swift. I think it is absolutely insane how long she's been relevant. And not only that, she's dominated multiple genres of music. That is absolutely crazy. And I actually like a lot of her music. But with that being said, maybe you're like me and you don't quite get the hysteria when you see videos online like this. Now, obviously, not everyone that likes Taylor Swift acts like this. I don't. But there is a little bit of truth, I think, to the fact that sometimes Taylor Swift fans can be a little over the top. You can probably imagine my joy when I was sitting on the toilet the other day, scrolling through GitHub repositories, and I came across this one. A data set of every single Taylor Swift song. Not the music, but the lyrics. Which got me thinking. I can analyze all of these Taylor Swift lyrics, and I can objectively look for things like emotional and thematic depth of her lyrics. I can look at the lexical sophistication and a bunch of other really boring metrics to see how talented of a poet she is or is not. And not only that, I can compare her to other artists. I can take all of Kendrick Lamar's lyrics and compare it to her. I can download all the screenplays of William Shakespeare. And I can even upload my own journal of the last 4 years to see how I compare to these insanely talented artists. And using all these different analytical strategies and make a singular score to see the poetic brilliance of each artist. And then we can finally answer the question of this video. Is Taylor Swift actually a talented lyricist? Let's find out. This is what we ended up going with. In no particular order, we have Taylor Swift, because she's the topic of this video. William Shakespeare, because, you know,
he's Shakespeare.
Kendrick Lamar, because he's like the biggest rapper of our generation. Bob Dylan, because my wife told me that he was a really good lyricist. Eminem, because he was the first rapper that I listened to when I was like 12. And last and definitely most least, Luke Jones, me. Now, how are we actually going to compare these different artists? Well, the idea of having a single score to compare them all comes from one of my favorite stats in sports, QBR, quarterback rating. This is a comprehensive score that just tells you at one glance how well a quarterback performed in a game. And so quarterback rating gives a score of 1 to 100 based on how well the quarterback performed in that game. And so I'm going to create something similar with PBR, a score of 1 to 100, 100 being absolutely perfect, based on the quality of the poetry. Now, this is a big disclaimer because I know absolutely nothing about poetry. I am not a talented writer at all. And so someone else with a better background in English should definitely be doing this and not me. But something that I do have a little bit of experience in is something called natural language processing. And so there's a few techniques in natural language processing that we can use to make a definitive score. And so using natural language processing, there's going to be 4 dimensions that we get our PBR from. The first one is called lexical sophistication. That sounds fancy, but it's just about the type of words that you use. How much variety is there in your vocabulary? How complex are the words that you use? How meaningful are the words that you choose to use? We can actually measure all these different things and put it into that first variable. And so this part of the equation sums all those 3 variables into one final score. And this lexical sophistication is worth 25% of PBR. The next variable is called figurative language. In this part of the equation, we're just measuring the descriptive language, the semantic depth, the abstract language, and the focus of the content. And so the code goes through all those different aspects and gives it a final score in figurative language. This part of the equation is also worth 25% of total PBR. Now, the biggest factor in PBR is emotional and thematic depth. Using natural language processing, we're actually able to see what types of emotions are being expressed in the text itself. And so we're using things like sentiment analysis. And so we're analyzing how diverse the emotions are, how diverse the different topics are, and the type of imagery that they use to convey emotions and topics. And so this is worth 30% of PBR. And the last 20% of the equation is calculated by uniqueness and creativity. Here we look at all the different words and phrases that are used, and we try to see how unique they are compared to other stuff that they've written. If it's more unique, you get a higher score. If it's less unique and more repetitive, you get a lower score. Now, I'm sure there are tons of flaws with this analysis, but at the end of the day, all of these things are standardized into different scores. But please remember, this is just a fun side project. This is not scientific or academic in any way. It's not that we better understand how I'm making these scores. Let's run this analysis and see what happens. Okay, so now I'm in the actual code itself, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I just want to show you what I'm actually doing. And so the first main thing is I have a different folder here for every artist. And so like I said earlier, I have a JSON file with every single lyric that Taylor Swift has ever written. It's about 60,000 lines of data. And I have the same information for others. So I have all the different plays that Shakespeare wrote. I have all of Kendrick Lamar's lyrics, and same thing with Eminem and Bob Dylan as well. I also have my journal, but I'm not going to show you that. And so now I have here what I was talking about earlier, where we have the actual code that makes the 4 different metrics. And then these 4 metrics create PBR. Again, I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but it calculates the lexical, figurative, emotional, and uniqueness scores, and it adds them all together and it returns the score for each artist based on all of that data that I just showed you. And so this does like 90% of the work. But I also made some plots with matplotlib, so that's what this code is, and I'll show you some of those visualizations in a second. And then I have this last script that basically takes those previous two Python files and it runs them for every artist over and over until it's all done. And so I am now ready to show you the results of this analysis. Coming in at number 6, absolute last place of this analysis, this may be a surprise to you. It's Luke Jones. It's me. Okay, that probably wasn't a surprise at all. Obviously, I'm the worst writer here out of everyone. But now, coming in at second to last, this one might actually surprise you. We have William Shakespeare. That's right. So if you look right here, I have a score of 65. William Shakespeare has a score of 71. That might seem like a small difference, but that's honestly a completely different league. And so unfortunately, I am not a better writer than William Shakespeare. But now, coming in at number 4 with a score of 74.4, we have, this might surprise you, Taylor Swift, the subject of today's video. She's a full 3 points ahead of William Shakespeare. And so you could make an argument that Taylor Swift is a more talented writer than William Shakespeare.
Please know that Taylor Swift has an entire team of people that helps her write her songs.
And so this was honestly very surprising to me. I was expecting Shakespeare to be like number 1, if I'm going to be honest. I was expecting William Shakespeare to be number 1 out of everyone. So having him come in at number 5 is pretty surprising. And at number 3, we have, with a score of 76.4, Eminem, Marshall Mathers himself. He's a full 2 points ahead of Taylor Swift, which is a smaller difference, but it's still a significant amount. Now, ahead of Eminem at number 2, with a score of 76.6, so just 0.2 higher, is Bob Dylan, my man from Minnesota. Now, this difference might be marginal. I'm not sure if it's statistically significant or not, but he did score slightly better than Eminem in a few categories. Now, coming at number 1, you probably already guessed it, but the score is actually insane. We have Kendrick Lamar with a score of 82.1, and this is like leagues better than everyone else. Like the difference from me to William Shakespeare was 6 points. Again, me, a run-of-the-mill guy, a full 6 points worse than William Shakespeare. That's the difference from Bob Dylan and Eminem to Kendrick Lamar. It's a full 6 points, meaning that he is in his own tier. He's in his own league. Okay, like for part 2 and comment what artists you think I should analyze in the future. But like I said, this is absolutely insane how high his score is. Now, if you want to look at the specifics about each of their different scores, I made some radar charts here to compare everyone. He scores pretty high in almost everything. And something interesting that I see here is that Taylor Swift has like the exact same shape. It's just that all of her scores are a little bit lower. Her emotional score is lower, her uniqueness is lower, and her lexical score is quite a bit lower as well. Here's a bar chart if you want to look at the different comparisons. Pause if you want to see this. I made an HTML file that shows all this data as well. So here's just a table with all of that data. We can see that Kendrick Lamar ranks number 1 for everything except figurative language. And then Taylor Swift is pretty much in the middle for all of them. Now, obviously, we're like just scratching the surface of the types of insights that we could pull from this data. I only wanted to look at these metrics to keep this video from going too off the rails. We could look at things like what the most common words that they use are, if there's a repeating phrase, if there's repeating themes that these artists like to talk about. We can do all these different things with natural language processing. Again, like if you want to see a part 2 and I can go more in depth about all of these things. But I think it's safe to say that Kendrick Lamar is the clear winner of this analysis, and Taylor Swift is by no means a loser. She has a very solid score of 74, which puts her in the same tier as Bob Dylan and Eminem in my opinion. So what does this actually mean? I think it means that I actually owe my Taylor Swift fans an apology, but I also think you should apologize to me. Look, if you would have told me before this analysis that Taylor Swift would have scored higher than William Shakespeare, I would have never believed that. And I think something that this analysis did was that it really put into perspective how talented these musical artists are. Like, yeah, they do have teams of people helping them, but I think analyzing my writing style was a great control group. If I'm representative of just an average person and I scored in the 60s, it makes me respect all these musical artists, including Taylor Swift, a lot more when this analysis showed how much more sophisticated their writing style is than mine. And so, to answer the question that I posed at the beginning of this video, is Taylor Swift actually a talented lyricist? I have to give a resounding yes. Even though I may not enjoy all of her music, I have to respect the talent she has in writing poetry. Alright, I think that's it. Bye.